Good morning. Thank you for joining me. My name is Nicole Brewster. I'm the president and CEO of Renforth Resources, which trades on the CSE, RFR, OTCQB, RFHRF, and Frankfurt 9RR. So what is Renforth Resources? Well, we're a very large battery metals system on a large property. We're backed by gold. We also hold a gold deposit in an excellent location, which we will likely look to monetize. Be duly cautioned, I'm the president, the CEO. I am not impartial. You should always do your own due diligence, and forward-looking statements rely on other things before they could come true. So where's Renforth? We're located in the province of Quebec in Ontario. We're in the southern portion of the province, specifically the Abitibi. Quebec is a phenomenal jurisdiction for mining. It's regularly voted one of the top in the world. And we're in a macro environment where jurisdictional risk, we're seeing that in the headlines. So the fact that we don't have any concerns with that is actually a positive for Renforth. It's also the province, interestingly, from the point of view of an operating mine, with the cheapest electricity in my country, and 98% of the electricity in the province is renewable. 94 is from hydroelectric generating station, which we actually have to the south of us as well. So what specifically are we talking about? We're talking about basically a consolidation play. I consolidated all the historic gold and base metals showings about almost 2 years ago now. It was a process, but I consolidated them all into a property which is 330 square kilometers. This is in addition to our pre-existing Parbec gold deposit. Parbec sits on the Cadillac Break. It's contiguous to Canadian Malartic, has 1.8 kilometers of strike of one of Canada's most prolific gold structures. All along that Cadillac Break, there are gold mines. So that's an excellent piece of real estate, which we will most likely at some point monetize to fund exploration on Surimo. At Surimo, you can see our Victoria and Lalonde occurrences. Victoria is the dotted orange line on the southern part of the property across the middle, and Lalonde is just to the north. We've ground truthed and proven Victoria to be a 20-kilometer long mineralized structure. Lalonde, we've proven 9 of those kilometers. So what I consider Renforth's defining characteristic is our logistical advantage. This slide speaks to it somewhat. You see a highway noted, and it's faint on the slide. It's hard to see, but that's the northern route of the Trans-Canada Highway. That's major federal highway. We are just south of the town of Cadillac. We're just west on the western side of the town of Malartic, and we're not too far from Val-d'Or, which is a historical mining town. Not shown on this map is Rouyn-Noranda, which is about an hour to the west, to the left. So we're in a brownfield environment with all the resources you need to do not just exploration, but also development and build a mine nearby in an area where people make their living with mining or with the ancillary businesses. So it's very much socially acceptable. Nobody lives on the Surimo property. There are no significant bodies of water. There is one First Nation an hour to the north. Half of Surimo, the part we're working on, is their treaty ground, and we're in a good relationship with them. So the logistics of being able to drive directly onto the property with the power lines for the Rapid 7 and Rapid 2 hydroelectric generating station crossing the power line will have the effect in the future. And I mean, they do already in the exploration phase we're in, but if there's a decision to mine, the setting will definitely start to bear fruit for the company, in that it'll drive down the cost to operate a mine significantly. So the drillers go home, the geologists go home, everyone goes home and sleeps in their own bed at night, which is unique. A lot of what we're seeing is in the macro is not just the time is now, as this slide says, but also its location, location, location. Quebec is in the southern portion of Quebec. We have a rail link just off the property, roads. establish free trade agreements and transportation corridors into the industrialized portions of North America. So we're in a very good location with the cheap ease of operating. We all know the macro for critical minerals. At Surimo, we're dealing with a nickel sulfide polymetallic. Gives us nickel, cobalt, platinum, and palladium. It also gives us VMS stringers with copper, zinc, gold, and silver. So of those critical, we've got nickel, we've got cobalt, we've got copper, and we have zinc. So it's quite an interesting package of mineralization. And like I said, it's stretching over 29 kilometers currently. This slide is government regional airborne magnetics. It's important to highlight, how are we there? When I said I consolidated historic showings, the property was discovered in the 1940s as they put the power line through. Then it was explored very briefly in the 60s and very briefly in the 80s. In each instance, they were looking for gold because we are just south of the major gold-bearing structure. And they found base metals and there was no interest. The property is largely unexplored. What work we've done so far has been using lumber roads to access the ground. We've done a very limited amount of cutting. So there's literally ground that's never been seen. In fact, the drilling we did in March, April, the western portion of Victoria, was in ground that's never been explored before. So here you see Victoria across the bottom of the central portion of the property, the 20-kilometer magnetic anomaly, and just to the north you see Lalonde. So they are very big structures which actually look quite interesting, but were, again, largely ignored until we consolidated everything. So this is detail of geophysics we flew. Again, you see Victoria, and the area by the road in Victoria was explored historically. The area by the road in Lalonde was explored historically. And then Colony to the eastern portion of Victoria. We now call it just Victoria, but it used to be called Colony. It saw some exploration. You see here the road, and you can see our drilling, our initial drilling in green. At Victoria, we drilled off 2.2 kilometers of strike. At Lalonde in the north, we drilled off a bit less than a kilometer of strike. And this past March, we went to the very left-hand or western side of Victoria where the red dot is. We drilled off about 750 meters of strike. In every instance, we have mineralization on surface, which is what this EM survey, the peach-colored boxes and white circles, those are all EM anomalies. And when we go to them and we find rocks, surface bedrock, we find the sulfide mineralization. So it's almost a roadmap to mineralization, and it's made the sulfide exploration, it's really concentrated our attention, although we do have a few other things we want to do as well. We stripped very early on in our work at Victoria, 275 meters between drill holes. And you see how we did little crosscuts to the north and the south at either end of our east-west stripping. Well, this slide is in here to illustrate that this is, for all we know, as indicated by this survey, exactly where the mineralization is. This is still an exploration process because so much has been unexplored. When we acquired Victoria, there were two small pits on the shear zone, the copper-colored material, in the center of this mineralized package. We have the ultramafic to the north and the south. One is mineralized, one is not. But our north crosscuts, we thought this was the whole package. We subsequently learned through prospecting and then drilling that this stripping came up about 40 meters short of a northern band of mineralization. And then in December, we learned that there's in fact a third band of mineralization to the north. So Victoria is still changing and growing. This does not depict the northern holes we subsequently did. This mineralized package has now increased in north-south width. The strike is east-west, so we're looking to the west in this picture. What do we see in our drilling is, as indicated with the blue trace, we see a consistent ultramafic nickel, cobalt PGEs. Then within it, we see the VMS stringers at either end. with the copper zinc, and occasionally the two mix, but they are distinct in the drilling as well. The reason for that is that we interpret the two events. There's two schools of thought with my five geologists, so two different theories. One is two different mineralizing events occurring in the same place at different times. The other is mineralization coming through in pulses and cooling due to the terrain and the timing. In any case, ultimately, our model for this style of mineralization is the Outokumpu district in eastern Finland. However, we haven't done it all yet. We haven't seen it all. We see higher grade material for nickel, copper, zinc, than the consistently larger volume, lower grade. So we don't have the full picture of the mineralization yet. We continue to work. Similarly, at Lalonde, we reoriented our stripping to be north-south. We caught both shoulders of the horizon at Lalonde. This was our first foray into Lalonde, so we were working based just under our surface prospecting. And similarly, in March, when we drilled the western end of the property, we were working largely blind. This shows you our three areas of drilling to date. Again, the main concentration is Victoria, where we drilled off 2.2 kilometers of strike to about 160 meters depth. And then we went 3 kilometers to the north to Lalonde, also beside the road, and the hydro line, which you see as the dash line. And then this past March, we went from Victoria 3 kilometers to the west to drill off the western end of the property. Nickel, nickel is what we're looking at here as the focus. And we still need nickel. Really doesn't matter what the chemistries, we're not going to get away from it. Now, nickel right now is the cost to produce nickel around the world, specifically Indonesia, is pretty hideous. I feel that we can be a greener source. We have green power. You also will recall that ultramafics, when exposed to oxygen, sequester carbon. So we'd be removing carbon from the atmosphere. Our logistics, our setting, everything's low impact. We're not, we're getting things done as efficiently as possible. Then that's going to be the key as an operator going forward, is efficiency. So our location and our logistics delivers supreme efficiency. Now, when I look at what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, I look for examples. And the most relevant example right now is the Talvivaara mine, which is the Terrafame company, a joint venture between Trafigura and the government of Finland. They are mining 2 small pods, and they have a significant 1 billion ton resource from these 2 open pit pods. We would be looking at an open pit. I mentioned briefly, we have the Canadian Malartic beside us. It's a 4 kilometer long, 400 meter deep open pit. So an open pit is a socially acceptable way of mining in the neighborhood we're in. We would look to mine from an open pit in the future, and our grades are in this range, in fact, slightly better in some instances, in what we've seen in the drilling so far, with every possibility that our grade could go up. We fully expect we're going to find higher, and we see in our drilling, higher grade areas of the structure. So we will eventually be focusing in on those higher grade lenses. Now, what else do we have going on? Well, like I said, Surimo is a big property. It's 330 square kilometers, about 4.5 times the size of the island of Manhattan. Southern portion of Surimo, as you see in this geology map, is covered with the Descelles batholith. It's a fertile batholith. We have numerous pegmatites on the property, and within the batholith, as is the only regional occurrence of spodumene, is right next door in a pegmatite within the batholith. I retained an expert to come up with a exploration program for us for rare elements. We have pegmatites. We have pegmatites which we feel are very prospective for hosting spodumene. We have seen lithium on the property already, but we're seeing a lower class of lithium, which right now is not a concern, although they do process that in China and upgrade it to the point of battery. That's not happening in Quebec right now. However, yes, there's lithium on the property, but you're going to see us prospecting later this. Spring is approaching in the north, so we're getting ready a couple weeks to be out prospecting not only the pegmatites for spodumene, but also prospecting on the battery metal mineralization. As I said, we're backed by a gold deposit. It has a 43101 in place. Subsequent to the 43101, we drilled 15,000 meters and validated 13,000 historic meters. So we consider the 43101 to be out of date now. We have a nickel exploration property in Ontario as well. But our Parbec delivered some significant intervals. And we could look at Parbec from the point of view of a high grade or longer interval, lower grade drill holes. Everything here that is the 20s, the 21s is out, as well as prior to 2007, is not in the resource currently. So what you're looking at here is 87 to 2019 for the 2007 to 2019 for the resource. So schematic examples, the Cadillac break is the teal colored stuff in the middle. However, we made a discovery in the sediments. We have a splay of the Cadillac break on the property. When the Cadillac break moves, good things happen. We also are pretty shallow. And in fact, we have more mineralization in the volcanics in the north. So Parbec, there's still work to be done. That brings me to the end of my talk. The timing is now. We trade in Canadian terms, we're trading 2.5, 3 cents. I've previously developed and sold assets. As a result, we sit on about $2 million worth of securities in our trading account. Our logistical advantage cannot be overstated, in my opinion. Surface mineralization, amenable to heap leaching, nearby processing solutions in any case, and still lots of blue sky, lots of work to be done, and we haven't even started drilling deeply. So we're not going anywhere. I've been doing this a little while. My personal net worth is tied up in this company. The CFO and myself are the only staff, and we are contractors who are paid in shares pretty much every 18 months. And so, I'm aligned with shareholders, and my intent is to make money on the shares. So with that, I'm done my presentation. And do we have any questions?
All right, this is great to hear, Nicole. Very good presentation. So everyone in the chat or the Q&A, please feel free to ask any question. We're covering a lot of commodities with Renforth Resources and a very early stage project. So surely there are quite some questions to know more about the project. To start, maybe I have one. A lot of commodities, a lot of projects. Is there any plan to either GV, so to create a joint venture with other bigger players in the area, or what is the exact, how will you manage to develop all of those projects simultaneously?
Right now, the realistic outcome, Parbec, we will look to monetize Parbec as opposed to do more work. Within Surimo here, we have the Beaupré copper discovery in the north. We haven't done much with that, and it's very low cost. This summer, at least, we won't be spending a lot of money. The prospecting is cost effective, but you are correct. At some point, we have to bring a partner into Surimo. My position is it's early to do so yet. We haven't really fully examined, nor can we can't give a fulsome picture even of the Victoria trend where we've done the most work, but we will be looking for a partner down the road a little bit. What might occur sooner than later in the bottom of the property where we'll be doing the pegmatite exploration, if we have any success there, we'll monetize that. We'll find a partner for that, because my focus is the nickel structure. So Yes, partners are a consideration on the horizon. To that note, I'm in cordial chatting every once in a while with several major mining companies that are watching, but we're still early stage. I mean, I'm not a good judge of what's perceived as risk because this is what I do for a living and I'm an entrepreneur. The mining companies are run by accountants and very risk averse, so they'll want us to see us do more work at Victoria before they would become involved in a meaningful way in any case.
All right. Well, this is a clear explanation for sure what's upcoming, and a lot of focus on work. And that being said, for investors that are all around the world, mining laws are very different and varies from one country to another. You said earlier that there was already a big open pit around. Can you tell us if there are literally on your claims or anything, any habitations, any people living there? Is it all forest and so on? Just a little more details about what's on the claims right now.
Yeah. So next door, the Canadian Malartic mine is an open pit. As I understand, the open pit's actually reached its end of life,
Yeah.
and they're going to have to put a phenomenal amount of material back into the big hole. Um, However, but that's part of the plan, right?
Exactly.
Surimo, as you see here, we're south of the town of Cadillac. We're west of the town of Malartic. Nobody lives on Surimo. So it's government property. It's regularly timbered, logged by the province. The only First Nation nearby is an hour to the north. It's a Pikogan First Nation. They're an Algonquin First Nation, which is unusual in the province of Quebec. And they have a treaty which was actually signed in Ontario next door in 1906 that covers half of the Surimo property. So it's more or less from the center to the west. And that's actually wonderful because it outlines one First Nation which we have to deal with. And we benefit from, if you look, you see how many lakes are in the area, and we have no significant bodies of water on the Surimo property either. So it's uninhabited. We're not in anybody's backyard. We're not visible from the regional highway. Even when you get onto the road that goes from Cadillac to the Rapid 7, it's trees. It's in the middle of the property. There's not a lot of people on it, and there's not a lot of visibility from it. So we're in a very good location in terms of social acceptability.
Well, this is great to hear. And on top of that, as you said, it is a mining belt all around from La Ronde Mine, Westwood. You have the Gold X around there, Canadian Malartic, everything. So there is access also to obviously very skilled miners and employees for geology and so on. If we continue, you said that basically you see the company as prime asset being nickel. Can you tell us a little more about what's happening in the nickel sector right now, what it is used for, and what the demand could look like in a few years?
Yeah. The leading metals based on the research I read, which are going to be in deficits in the future, are lithium and nickel. Now, right now, for example, lithium's in an oversupply. That has a lot to do with COVID in China and the new year and industrial taps being turned off. But pretty much all these metals, we really only see clarity in the world for metal supply out to about 2030. Then things drop off a cliff. We're sitting in 2023 right now, and that's sort of the timeline that Surimo, 2030s would be coming into its own because it takes time to develop a property and build a mine. Even if we're successful in getting governments to slash regulation and expedite the process, it's still not an overnight process. From the point of view of an investor, the exploration cycle is the most exciting development cycle. The stock will drift and die because there's a lot of money required. And then once a mine is open, it can then peg to its production and the accounting that goes with it. So we're still in the exciting phase and we'll be here a little while. Nickel is required in pretty much every battery chemistry cathode choice. Nickel is able to store energy very densely. So you're not getting away from nickel. Nickel has its industrial uses as well. But And the neat thing about the energy revolution is the industrial uses keep most of these metals in balance, i.e. we produce kind of what we need and we recycle a little bit. But the energy pivot is throwing out of balance the need for all these metals. Copper's a big one. Copper's got some serious structural problems coming. And there's not a lot of assets even on the table. Forget about near production right now. We do see copper at Surmo, but right now we see it as it would be a payable credit. Nickel is the focus. And lithium, we have a significant amount of lithium potential. So that may provide us a monetization solution in the near future. But no, nickel, I mean, zinc, nickel, stainless steel metal production, just general, the earth is expanding. People have to build houses, forget about China, watch India develop in a macro and take their population from living in, poverty with no electricity in some areas to wanting to be middle class and share in how the world lives. That's going to probably underpin, along with the energy transition, the next mining market metals super cycle, which I think, and consensus opinion is, we're at the very early stages of.
Well, absolutely. I cannot agree more to what you describe as a situation for the commodities there, specifically nickel and copper and lithium also. One last question that I have, because it's we have still 1 minute. You are in industry, which is surrounded by a boys' club, and quite often 99% of managers are men in the industry. So I'd like to know what drove you. So how did you ended up on the CEO of Renforth Resources and your love for commodities and metals?
Well, I grew up in this. My father's a successful exploration geologist who's done some neat things around the world. So this is the world I grew up in. This kind of stuff was the stories at the dinner table in my house. And I guess my father didn't, he didn't differentiate much between my brother and myself. My brother's a working mining engineer. I became a stockbroker, but at the same time, I was involved. I'm old enough with the white hair that I was involved in the early days of computer digitization of exploration data. To say it simply, I was a contractor. I own a contracting company that was owed a lot of money by Renforth. When I stopped being a stockbroker, when I had a family, I went back to being a contractor and doing what I do with computers, but also logistics and custom exploration programs. So we took a bunch of Renforth stock and I had to become the president, and here I am today. You know what? It's a boys' club, but boys aren't silly. I really do not come into any issues with men that I work with, right?
Oh,
They're just
I'm sure not. It's more about inspiring anyone that listens to us and that don't know if it's possible. That
okay. So the
there's
advice I have for female friends with who do work in different industries or get put into situations where they're all with men and they're worried that they can't work with men is, first of all, just be yourself, be normal, be smart, and give the men the benefit of the doubt. If you want to say something, just say it. Just say it clearly and do it. It's about communication and respect. Doesn't matter if it's between men and women or just men or just women. It's the same. So, you know what? There's lots of room in this industry for women. I'll be frank, a working field geologist, it's a tricky balance to have a family and do those things, but it can be done. It can be
Absolutely.
done.
Well, that was the closing statement from Nicole Brewster, the CEO from Renforth Resources. It can be done. Just do it. Easy as that.
Exactly. Just do it.
Thank you for the great presentation. I'm passing now the lead to Matthias. He's going to be moderating the next period. Thank you very much.
Thank you.